All right, welcome back. We're dealing with Chapter 14, Domestic Policy. This is the third presentation. We're going to focus more on the social welfare side of things on this presentation. So let's jump in. So the welfare state was created to address inequality. The welfare state generally consists of a collection of programs and policies that nations create to protect the economic and social well-being of their citizens. And this is not just altruism. The point of welfarism generally is, on the one hand, to secure people who are vulnerable, the elderly and things like that, but it's also to give people a hand up so that they're in a position at some later date to become productive tax-paying citizens. It's predicated on the idea of redemption, of the idea that people can do better. So for much of Americans' history, the care of the poor was handled at the local levels and to a lesser degree the state level. For much of the colonial period and well into the 19th century, churches and local governments managed the care of the poor. So to illustrate, the predominant occupation in many East Coast towns was fishing, and it's always been a hazardous occupation. A bad winter, bad storm season might leave a significant percentage of the town's families bereft of a breadwinner through no fault of their own. When such circumstances occurred often enough, local churches lacked the resources to keep families housed, fed, and clothed, which led local governments to establish widows and orphans funds. Social welfare spending also spiked at the state level following the Civil War, where 600,000 Americans were killed in action, but additionally, hundreds of thousands of soldiers lost limbs, and prosthetic limbs became a major investment for those state governments. The Great Depression caused this kind of partially privatized, decentralized system to collapse. The Roosevelt administration drew on ideas from Europe to create the first American welfare state. And welfarism emerged in Europe as conservative strategies for engendering loyalties of a rapidly expanding urban working class to the state. And it's not surprising that England and Germany were the first states to really establish generous working welfare programs, because workers in those states were kind of inclined towards socialism. Welfarism in the United States is distinctly American. Is highly program-driven and governed by the distinctive rules of each individual program. And American modern welfarism is comprised of three separate categories of programs: contributory, non-contributory, and tax expenditure systems. So many of the original contributory programs originated with the Social Security Act, which is the foundation of the American welfare state. Non-contributory programs are basically those programs that you don't have to pay into in order to be eligible to get benefits from them. So contributory programs are again, financed by the advance of dedicated taxes. These are taxes that are withdrawn from people's pay weekly or monthly, and they're described at the time of their creation as social insurance. So social insurance amounted to programs that required Americans and their employers to contribute 3.2% of their paychecks into the Social Security Trust Fund, where the money would be held in savings until an individual reached retirement age, or that age where individuals were eligible to receive monthly benefits from the trust fund. So Social Security is the largest and best known contributory program, again following reforms in the 1980s. The employee and employer paycheck contribution was raised to 2.6% on each $137,700 of income. Wealthier Americans, again, who earn in excess of $137,700 pay no additional tax into the system. Let's see. Although, again, Social Security recipients' purchasing power is preserved through the cost of what are known as cost of living adjustments. So again, somebody who worked in the in the 1980s or 90s, the dollars that they were paying into the system are not the same due to inflation. So you have to have what are known as COLA adjustments. And again, these are basically economists that calculate how much money is necessary in order to keep elderly purchasing power at a relatively current level. The largest single expansion in contributory programs since 1935 was the establishment of Medicare in 1965. So again, 30 years later, that provides substantial medical services to elderly people and the permanently disabled. Let's see. So, all right, I'm going to go on. Unemployment insurance is important, another important contributory program. It is funded via a combination of federal and state taxes. In most states, benefits last a maximum of 26 weeks, but in periods of high unemployment, Congress can authorize an additional 13 weeks of unemployment. Unemployment insurance comprises a critical component of the federal government's 2020 response to the coronavirus pandemic. For most workers, unemployment insurance only replaces a portion of their lost wages. It's designed to keep them afloat, but not necessarily, to keep them comfortable. Many Americans in the contemporary economy are in many instances, are ineligible for unemployment insurance. And these are people who work, independent contractors, gig employees, and part-time workers. If you're an Uber driver, you're probably not eligible for unemployment insurance. Non-contributory programs, these are the programs for which beneficiaries do not have to contribute. And this is what Americans think of when they think of welfare. Eligibility is determined via what is known as means testing. People seeking access to non-contributory programs have to fill out an application form which demonstrates a financial need for assistance. As part of the Social Security Act of 1935, Congress also created a cash assistance program known as Aid to Families with Dependent Children, as well as aid to the elderly, blind, and disabled people, what was known as Old Age Assistance. Those programs were later consolidated during the Eisenhower administration into what is known as Supplemental Security Income. The largest expansion of contributory programs was the creation of Medicaid in 1965, which provides medical services to low-income Americans. Contributory programs expanded significantly over the course of the 1960s and 70s. In the 1960s, they were part of Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty programs. Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program is also known as SNAP. Provides in-kind benefits, and these are non-cash goods and services provided to needy individuals and families by the federal government. The 1994 midterm elections brought Republicans to control of the House of Representatives for the first time in 40 years. They worked with the Clinton administration to end welfare as we know it, but by 1996, welfare reforms broke the linkages between Medicaid, food stamps, and cash welfare. Replacing aid to families with dependent children with temporary assistance to needy families, which is known as TANF. Some means-tested non-contributory programs are run by the federal government with uniform eligibility requirements and benefits nationwide. And SNAP is one of those school lunch programs, SSI, these are all examples. Many programs are run jointly by the federal government and the states, and as a result, the benefits can vary greatly state by state. The modern welfare state, these are, TANF spending rates. And again, if you look at it, again, in those states of the former Confederacy, you're finding very low payments. And in those states that have large urban populations, you're finding that the payments are a lot more, a lot more generous, right? Tax expenditures. The United States provides social welfare benefits through tax breaks. These may include tax credits, deductions, and preferential tax rates that some analysts call the shadow welfare state. Tax expenditures include subsidies that benefit employers who offer their workers medical insurance and retirement plans and traditional pensions and 401ks. It was a way of providing benefits to workers without not necessarily providing direct cash. And the federal government was worried about it at the time, because that's when, when people suddenly get big influxes of cash, that's when you start getting inflation. The shadow welfare state includes tax breaks that individuals can file for when they prepare their tax returns. So to illustrate, taxpayers can deduct from their income the amount they paid in home mortgage interest and in state and local taxes up to a limit. There are also tax deductions for out-of-pocket medical expenses, child care, charitable contributions, and the like. These tax breaks lower the effective cost of home ownership, health insurance, child rearing, and other activities that the state views as things that we should be trying to make easier for people. So again, many of the benefits of the shadow welfare state are concentrated among middle and upper middle class individuals and families who are more likely to already have employer provided benefits at work and engage in subsidized activities like buying a home. These benefits are often not thought of as social policy because they're not as visible, and many people just take it as a right, but they cost the federal government up to $1 trillion in lost revenue annually. Social policies, again, are designed to open up opportunities. The two principal elements of the welfare state are economic security and programs designed to secure equality of opportunities. The three most significant policies intended to offer equality of opportunities include education, health, and housing benefits. We'll deal with education, and then we'll probably close this presentation. So education policies, again, are the most important single force in the distribution and redistribution of opportunity in America. However, education policies are largely set by state and local governments. One thing that changed that was the Soviet Union's launch of Sputnik in 1957. Again, that was a satellite. They were able to get a satellite into orbit. That was a technological game changer. They demonstrated that they had an advantage on us with missile technology. That led the federal government to pass the National Defense Education Act in 1958 to improve education in science and mathematics. In 1965, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act offered federal support for school districts with substantial numbers of students with low-income parents. And again, what we know is most schools are funded through local property taxes. When you have a lot of low-income people, they're not paying property taxes because they're renting. So today the federal government contributes 10% of all spending on K through 12 education, with state and local governments each contributing 45% each. Congressional failure to update the formula for basically providing these kind of funding has caused federal funding to become less targeted over time. The No Child Left Behind Act was a significant reform and an attempt to improve public K through 12 education. It was a bipartisan effort. It was one of the priorities of the administration of George W. Bush. There was greater emphasis placed on testing for proficiency in math and reading. Critics argued that the law encouraged teaching to the test, which reduced classroom instruction and disproportionately punished school districts with low-income districts. The Obama administration decentralized the No Child Left Behind Act and granted states exemptions to the more punitive aspects of the bill. Obama also inaugurated the Race to the Top initiative that created a $4.3 billion grant program for state educational programs. In order to be eligible, states had to agree to lift caps on the creation of charter schools. Trump, basically he appointed a woman named Betsy DeVos, who strongly advocated loosely regulating charter schools and advocated for vouchers. DeVos is a private school advocate, and she basically is hostile to public education, calls them government schools, which I'm not a big fan of. In higher education, there is the significance of this idea of a wage premium. College graduates generally do earn up to 50% more than high school graduates, and that constitutes another important gateway to equal opportunity. As with K through 12 education, most higher education funding historically has come from state governments who viewed that investment as wise and contributing to a healthy state economy. Federal programs have made important contributions to promoting equal access to higher education. The first and most dramatic demonstration of the power of a college education was the GI Bill, which put higher education within the reach of a whole generation of World War II veterans, most of whom would never have been able to attend college. The National Defense Education Act, as I mentioned in a previous slide, offered, again, low-interest loans to college students, while the Higher Education Act supplied assistance directly to colleges and offered additional need-based grants allocated to students and universities. The Pell Grant program, again, offered grants directly to lower-income students that they could use to pursue higher education. And since the mid-1970s, states have sharply reduced investment in higher education, contributing to dramatically higher costs and increased student debt. The growing costs of higher education have put college out of the reach of many lower-income students and have left many who do attend with a heavy load of student debt. In the 2 decades between 1996 and 2016, average student debt among seniors graduating from four-year colleges has more than doubled after accounting for inflation, from $12,760 to $29,650, with lower income students often carrying far greater debt loads. So that's it for this presentation. When we get back, we will conclude our discussion of the material in Chapter 14. I'll see you next time.